Hello, friend, and welcome back to the show. We are continuing on the different ways that we hear from God, the different primary ways we hear from God. Today, we are diving deep into the feeler. So I want you to picture this. I'm standing in the lobby of our church at our local church, and all these people are coming in, and they come in the door, and they immediately are like, "Oh my gosh, it just feels so amazing here. Can you feel that? Like, I just really feel the Holy Spirit, and there's just so much peace. I can feel the presence of God the moment I walk in the door, and it's just so welcoming here, and you can just really feel the atmosphere here. It's just so thick with the presence of God." And I'm standing there like, yeah, sure, absolutely. And reality is I wasn't feeling anything. And there are times that I would feel peaceful there, sure, but I wasn't feeling it the way they were feeling it. And then team members would walk in and they would be so overwhelmed with the presence of God that there would be tears running down their face. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, I can hardly stand. It's so thick in here." And I'm standing there thinking, I don't get it. Like, I do feel peace here, sure, but like, I don't feel the things they're feeling. And I was wondering, like, is there something wrong with me? And then it hit me like, okay, they're a feeler and I'm not a primary feeler. So they're just being they're operating in their spiritual gift here. And I realized they're not being overdramatic. They're not being this overly emotional person. They're just being a feeler. And here's what I want you to hear today, that if you've ever been called too sensitive or overly emotional, or that you take everything personally, or if anyone's ever said, "Are you crying again?" Like, they're not, they don't understand. You can feel everything, and you've spent years thinking that maybe there's something wrong with you. Maybe you don't know how to control your emotions. Maybe you're being run by your emotions. But the reality is that your emotions aren't a weakness. They're actually a gift. And it's the primary way God speaks to you. So let me ask you a question to ponder. What if you're not broken? What if you're really not too much and you're actually just prophetic? And the way you are experiencing that is through emotion. You're experiencing that through feeling. And your feelings are actually a divine information will download to you. So welcome back to the podcast. I'm Rebecca, and today we are diving deep into the gift of feeling. And if this is you, be prepared to be set free from all those lies, because everything changes when you realize that your emotions are actually a gift. And I want to remind you that if you're interested, in the description box down below, there's a link for a free quiz that you can take. You can print it out. You can pass it around to your friends, even make copies of it. And you can take this free quiz to determine what is your primary gift. And you may be surprised. I had a friend who took the quiz for me, and she really thought that she was a hearer. And she scored higher on feeling than she did as a hearer. And it surprised her because she's like, "Yeah, I do feel things, but I never would have thought that I was a feeler first. I always thought that I was a hearer first, because that's the mode that I try to operate in primarily. But I do feel things. I can feel the atmosphere, and I just never realized that I was really stronger in that gifting than I am in the hearing." She would be what I would call bilingual. She hears really strongly and she feels really strongly, but she didn't credit her feelings, her emotions that she was feeling, as a gift. She was just thinking maybe she's just too overly emotional. She needs to have more control over her emotions. And so if you're thinking you may be one way or the other, I encourage you to take the quiz, because it's a really cool insight as to what may actually be going on. You may know exactly how you hear from God, and that is wonderful. And if you do, you can take the quiz just as fun. So anyway, the link is in the description box below. So let's start with, how do you recognize if you are a feeler? Well, first of all, you probably feel everything. And I mean everything. Like, you're not just aware of your own emotions, but you're also picking up on everyone else's too. And you can walk into a room and then you immediately sense the atmosphere. Is it tense? Is it heavy? Is it joyful? Is it peaceful? You don't have to think about it. You can just feel it. You're usually what we call the heart of the room. You're the emotional barometer, if you will. When something shifts in the atmosphere, you're usually the first one to feel it. Your emotions are signals. They're indicators of what's happening in the spiritual realm. You don't just feel your own stuff. You actually feel what's happening around you, beneath the surface and what's going on in the unseen. And here's what makes feelers so powerful. When you feel God's emotions. When God grieves, you grieve. When God celebrates, you celebrate. When God is compassionate towards someone, you feel that compassion well up inside you so strongly that you can barely contain it. But let me also tell you the burden of your gift. You carry other people's emotions without even realizing that they're not yours. You'll be having a perfectly fine day, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, anxiety just drops on you like a weight, and you start spiraling and trying to figure out, what is it that I'm so anxious about? I can't identify the source. It's because it's not yours. You're picking up on someone else's anxiety. Or you walk into a room or a situation and then suddenly you're overwhelmed with sadness and you're thinking, what is wrong with me? Like, why am I feeling so sad right now? And reality is what you're actually feeling is someone else in the room. You're feeling what's in the room, or you're feeling what's in the atmosphere. You're feeling what God is feeling about a particular situation. And because you've been labeled your whole life, you probably don't trust your emotions. You've been told that you're too sensitive so many times that you believe it. You've been asked, why are you crying again? Or you're being dramatic, or you just need to toughen up. And so you've spent years trying to shut down your emotions, trying to be less, trying to feel less, trying to toughen up so that you're not affected by everything so strongly. But here's what nobody's told you, is that your emotions, they're not a flaw. They're actually a feature. They're how God designed you to receive from Him. You can sense what's going on in physical environments that others will completely miss. You walk into a space and you feel spiritual warfare, or you feel breakthrough coming, or you feel the demonic presence that's been harassing someone, or you feel God's presence so thick you can barely breathe. So let me give you some examples. You're in worship service and everyone else is singing along, but you are completely undone. You're on your face, you're weeping. You can't even get the words out because you're so overwhelmed by what you're feeling. Or you walk into a friend's house and you immediately feel this tension. And then later you find out that they had actually had an argument right before you got there. You didn't see anything. You didn't hear anything, but you felt it. Or you may be in a conversation with someone and they're smiling and they're telling you everything is fine and they're good, everything's good, but you can feel pain. You can feel pain underneath their words. You can feel the hurt that they're trying to hide, and you know that they're not fine. That's your gift. You can feel what others can't. The confusion comes when you don't understand why you feel what you feel. You just know that you're overwhelmed, or you're exhausted, or you're drowning in emotions, and you don't know what to do with all of it. So let me give you some information that may help set you free for a little bit. Emotions, they have no moral value. They are amoral. They're not good nor bad. They just are. They exist as information. They're kind of like the oil light on the dash of your car. Like, it's just an indicator of, hey, there's something going on underneath the hood. You might want to pull over and take a look. You can feel anger and still not sin. Even Ephesians 4:26 says to be angry and sin not. See, anger is not the sin. What you do with your anger determines whether it becomes sin. See, the emotion itself, it's just information about something going on underneath the surface. Your emotions are also a prophetic gift because you feel what's happening in the spiritual realm and you're experiencing what others can't see. Let's take a look at Jesus. Jesus wept over Jerusalem. He felt God's grief over his people who were rejecting him. And he got angry in the temple when he saw that the people were exploiting the poor. Your emotions connect you to God in a way that most people never get to experience, not to the level and depth that you do. And here's something huge. You probably also have a gift of intercession, meaning that when you feel burdened, sadness, or grief that isn't yours, that's often a call to go and pray. Romans 8:28-6 says that the Spirit intercedes with groanings too deep for words. That's you. When you're feeling something so deeply that you can't even articulate it, or when you're groaning in prayer without knowing what you're praying for, that's intercession. You're partnering with the Holy Spirit to pray God's will into existence. You're experiencing what others can't. And that makes you a powerful intercessor, makes you a powerful minister, and it's a powerful force for the kingdom. But here's why feelers often feel like they're too much, because you're picking up on multiple levels of feelings simultaneously. Like you've got your own emotions, but then you've also got other people's emotions, and then you've got the atmosphere, and then you've got God's heart, and it's all happening at the same time. And it's like, no wonder you're overwhelmed. The lie that you've believed your entire life about something being wrong with you, or that you're broken, or you're too much, or you need to be less emotional. Here's the truth. You were designed to feel. It is your gift. God speaks to you through your emotions. And today we're going to learn how to steward that instead of apologizing for it. So first, let's talk about your superpowers, because as a feeler, you have some incredible gifts. You have some incredible strengths. First, you experience God's emotions. You don't just know about God's love, you can actually feel God's love for others. When you worship, it's not just songs. You're actually experiencing his presence. You're feeling his delight over you. You're feeling his love wash over you in waves. While I'm not much of a feeler, the most often time that I experience feeling as a prophetic gift is through worship. I'm the one who, I don't feel a whole lot other times, but during worship, I usually get pretty wrecked. It is a time where God speaks to me directly through emotion, and I can sense his emotion through worship, where it's a lot of times it's very overwhelming. And I love that so much. Worship becomes such a gift to me personally. And I've used worship for healing. I've used worship for just resetting my soul and my mind so many times. And I know it's because in worship, I'm getting to feel God's presence. I'm getting to feel his feelings toward me. I'm getting to feel his feelings about situations. And he's speaking to me that way, and it brings a lot of healing, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, relationally. And worship is just such a very powerful key and tool to bring that in. And you may not be much of a feeler other times except for in worship. And in worship, if you are the one who is like me experiencing this overwhelming presence, then I would encourage you to embrace that and hold on to that, because there's so much power in that. Like I can't even explain. Like there's so much healing available just in his presence and him speaking to you through that mode of intercession and worship, and just that connection that you have with him. As a feeler, when you read scripture, it doesn't just inform your mind, it actually moves your heart. You can read about God's compassion for the broken, and then you can actually feel that compassion. Like it's like it jumps off the page, and you can feel it in your physical body. You read about God's grief over sin, and then you feel that grief yourself. You probably often have very powerful, transformative encounters with God that change you from the inside out. That's your gift. You get to experience God's heart in a way that a lot of people never will. Secondly, as a superpower, you get to pick up on spiritual moments that others probably miss in the moment. For instance, like you sense a breakthrough before it happens, or you're in a prayer meeting or something, and then suddenly just joy rises up in you, and you know something has shifted in the spiritual realm. You feel when someone's hurting, even though they're saying, "Oh, I'm fine, I'm okay," but you can feel it, and it can prompt you to then start ministering to them when them telling you, if you just took it on face value of them saying, "Oh, I'm fine, I'm okay," a lot of people would just leave it at that, but you can feel that they're not okay and that they really need to be ministered to. And this is an opportunity for you to speak into their life. And I'm sure that they're really grateful for it. You can walk into a room and immediately know when something's off. Like maybe there had been a fight before you got there, or maybe there's sin someone's trying to hide, or maybe there's even spiritual warfare going on, and you can't see anything, but you can feel it. And it's not even a sensing. Like knowers sense things. It's like a mental knowing. Like I sense this. You actually feel it in your body. You can feel it not just in your emotions maybe, but you can even, feelers don't just have emotions. Feelers can actually feel it in their physical body. Like they could feel pain or hurt or grief. And those are all emotions, but there's something biological that a feeler can actually feel in their, I hate to repeat myself, but like you can feel it in your body in such a way that's like, something's shifted, something's like different, it's off, or it's good, or it's really good. It's a good thing, a positive thing. Doesn't necessarily always have to be negative, but you can feel a physical shifting in your body. And so it's not always just emotions. A lot of times it is, probably the predominant time it's emotional. But you can also feel things in a physical way. Your third superpower is that you have powerful encounters with truth. When you encounter God's word, it doesn't just inform you, it transforms you. You don't just believe God's promises intellectually, you can actually feel those promises in your bones. Little will stop you once you have felt God's truth about something. Like, when you've experienced his love, not just heard about it, but you've actually felt it, there's nothing that anyone could do or say that can take that away from you. Your emotions create this deep conviction and commitment. And once you've felt it, you know it. And you'll stand on that truth through any storm. But now let's talk about the shadow side, because every strength has a weakness. And if you're going to steward your gift well, you need to know what your pitfalls are. Your first weakness is that you may have difficulty functioning when things don't feel right. Let me explain. You can't move forward until it feels right. And if you have some knowers in your life, it probably frustrates the knowers in your life because there's like, look, just make the decision. We need to go. But you need to feel it. You need to feel the peace about it. You need to feel that it's the right thing to do. And until you do, you may be paralyzed. Speaking of being paralyzed, you may get paralyzed by negative emotions. Instead of just recognizing that they're just information, you feel anxiety, and instead of asking God, like, God, what are you showing me through this anxiety right now? You just freeze and you can't function and you just can't move forward. The atmosphere can affect your ability to function. Like if the room feels really heavy, you have a tendency to shut down. If there's tension, you can't think clearly. If there's someone angry, even if they're not angry with you, you absorb it and it affects you. You can take on other people's emotions and become overwhelmed. See, you're carrying all your own stuff, plus you're carrying other people's stuff too that's around you. And sometimes you can feel like you don't even realize that some of the stuff that you're carrying isn't yours. Like maybe half of what you're feeling isn't really your feelings. Or at least they're not your feelings. You're feeling them, but like they're not yours to carry. So let me give you an example. We had a feeler on our team, and she came to me one day just completely unable to make a decision about a project. It was a simple decision, but she was just paralyzed. And when I asked what was going on, she was like, I don't feel right about it. And when we dug a little bit deeper, we realized that she's actually feeling some anxiety from someone else and that she was carrying it as her own. So she just had to dump that anxiety from the other person and realize that's not hers to carry. It's not her feeling to have. And that it was just coming from something else, coming from another conversation, another person. And then she was able to think more clearly of like, okay, that's not mine. I'm going to give that back. And now what am I feeling myself? And then everything was fine and we were able to move forward. And here's the mark of a mature feeler. It's being able to feel whatever it is you're feeling, to feel something and not let it take over, not let it take over the room. You can acknowledge the emotion and you can steward it, but you don't let it take control of you or everyone else around you. Here's the second weakness of a feeler. You overvalue what you feel and leave others behind. Now, let me be careful here. Everyone who is strong in their own gift in this way, whether they're a knower, seer, feeler, hearer, we have a tendency to overvalue our gift because that's how God speaks to us. We have clarity through it, and we're ready to go forward. And sometimes as a feeler, it's the same thing. Last time we talked about a knower, and knowers can leave people behind, and feelers can do that too. It's a little different Feelers don't become bulldozers necessarily, but they can be really upset because you don't feel what they feel. A feeler has this feeling about something. I don't feel good about this, or I feel like we should go this direction or that direction. And if you don't agree with their feeling, they can get really upset and be like, why don't you feel this? Why don't you feel the compassion that I feel? Like, you should feel more compassionate about this situation. You should feel more upset about this situation. You should feel more love toward this person or that person. And as a knower or a hearer, or a seer even, there's not that, it's not that we don't have compassion for that person, but we're not letting our compassion override where it is we feel like God is calling us to go. We have other weaknesses. We have a tendency to let our gifts override what everybody else is feeling. But a feeler can certainly feel even more emotion. Like, if I have this super compassion for this people group or this thing or that or the other, or I really feel this is the direction we should go. And if the other people aren't feeling the same thing in the room, the feeler can then feel more feelings of frustration, aggravation, disappointment, sadness. Why don't you feel what I feel? But if you're not a feeler, you don't feel what the feeler feels. I hope that made sense. A lot of words there. But here's the thing. As a feeler, you can actually shut down decisions based off of what you feel without considering any kind of logic, wisdom, or what other people have as insight. Your emotions can become the only voice that really matters. But here's the danger. Feeling-led decisions made without wisdom are just as dangerous as logic without the heart. You need both. You need to honor what you feel and also engage in wisdom, counsel, and discernment. The third weakness as a feeler is that you may undervalue your feelings and dismiss God in them. So let me explain. This is the opposite extreme. Like, if you've always been told that you're too emotional, you can't control your emotions, you're run by emotions, you're too much, you're crying all the time, get a grip, get a hold of yourself, a lot of times you'll start stuffing them down. You'll learn to ignore them, and then you may even start apologizing for them. When this happens, you miss the prophetic message because you're ashamed of feeling. You're in a meeting and you start to tear up and you immediately say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just being emotional," instead of pausing and asking God, "What do you want to show me right now?" Being labeled as oversensitive has actually taught you to ignore your gift. So you start to shut down and you try to be more logical. You try to be more practical. You try to be less feeling. And in the process, you miss what God is saying. You can also miss the gift of intercession because you think you're just being emotional again. Like, here I go again. I can't get a grip. And you may have this sudden sense of sadness and you try to shake it off instead of recognizing, oh, this might actually be a call to go pray for someone or just to pray in general and see what God is trying to say. The fourth weakness of a feeler is that sometimes you may confuse your emotions with God's emotions. Not every feeling that you have is from God. Some feelings are your own wounds, your own triggers, your own flesh, and some feelings are other people's emotions, things that you've picked up. And some feelings are from the enemy trying to derail you. You take on other people's emotions and you think they're yours. You're anxious and you think, what's wrong with me? When actually you just spent time with someone who's an anxious person and you absorbed their anxiety. You can mistake your emotions or your feelings or the anxiety as discernment. True discernment from God often brings clarity. Even if it's uncomfortable, it's still clear. Anxiety and confusion are not from God. They're from the enemy. And we can often have these emotions, these feelings, and mistake them from God as a warning. Here's the difference. If you're feeling anxious and it is from God, it's a clear warning sign of don't, stop, wait. But anxiety in general, that doesn't come from God. That nervousness, that fear, that just that knot in your stomach of just, oh, that's not from God. That is, a lot of times it can be from the enemy. It can be from ourselves. It can be from the environment. And as a feeler, we need to grow in our maturity of this gift and in order to recognize when it's from us or our environment or others, and then when it really is truly from God. And sometimes it's hard to tell the difference. So when that happens, we need to actually test it. You need to test what you're feeling because not every emotion is a message from God. You need to ask, where is this coming from? Is this mine? Is this someone else's? Is this God? Is this the enemy? And if you have any kind of relationship with the Lord at all, like you can ask him and he will tell you. And as a feeler, he's probably going to tell you in feelings, but you may have a second gift of knowing or hearing or seeing, and he may tell you in another way, and he can give you confirmation. That's one of the biggest reasons why I really wanted to do this series on how to hear from God is because I talk a lot about having time with God. Go ask God this, go ask God that. You know, in any of the previous episodes that you've seen, there's always a time when you go, there's journaling time and there's time to get alone with God and ask him things. And I've realized that some people, that may be a foreign concept. Most people, maybe not, I don't know if I should say most, but in the circles that I'm in, it's not a foreign concept. But there are still circles that it is a foreign concept. And so I was like, you know what? Let's do a series on how we typically hear from God, the 4 primary ways, so that as people are doing their journaling, as they're having their alone time with God, they can get a better sense to understand how God speaks to them, and they can have more clarity. They can hear him more clearly. So if you know that you're a hearer or you know that you're a feeler, you can have more clarity in how God speaks to you, and you can grow more intimate in your relationship with him. So now let's talk a little bit about what being a feeler costs you relationally. For instance, if you're married to a knower and you're a feeler, it can create tension because they know what to do and they want to move forward, and you need to feel right about it. They may get frustrated and say things like, why do you need to feel everything? I already know the answer. And you get frustrated because I can't just do something until I feel peace about it. And this is hard because both of you are operating in your prophetic gifting, but your gifts process differently. Or you may have a friendship where you're dismissed as being too dramatic or too intense. And you cry when your friend shares something hard and they just roll their eyes because they're like, you get so emotional every conversation we have. And then they want to have a tendency to maybe shut down and leave or just quit talking about things. You're the one who cries in every meeting, at every church service, in every deep conversation. And people may tend to start avoiding deep conversations with you because you get too emotional, and they're not feelers. So they don't know how to handle it. They don't know how to deal with it. They don't understand you're a feeler and you're just going to feel everything. And then here's what happens. People start sharing real things with you because they don't want to deal with your emotions. They keep things surface level. And you can feel isolated because you crave depth, but everyone treats you like you're fragile. The exhaustion of picking up everyone's emotions and not knowing how to set boundaries is a very real thing. Like, you can go to a family gathering and come home totally exhausted and completely drained because you absorbed everyone's tension, everyone's stress, and everyone's unspoken conflict. You've been told you're too much, and reality is you're actually where God designed you to be. And you've spent years trying to be less, but you've tried to tone it down. You tried not to feel so deeply, and you're just exhausted. The isolation you feel of feeling everything while everyone else seems fine that's brutal. You're in a room full of all these people, and you're the only one who feels the heaviness. You're the only one who's picking up on what's really happening beneath the surface emotionally, and you can feel it, but you feel it alone, and you feel alone in it. And here's the breaking point for feelers. You carry burdens that aren't yours to carry, and you end up in burnout. You're interceding for everyone. You're feeling everyone's pain. You're carrying everyone's emotions, and nobody told you that you're not supposed to carry all of that. You're just supposed to pray through it. You're not supposed to carry it. You're supposed to pray through it. It's not your burden to bear. All right, so now let's talk about how to grow in your spiritual gift as a feeler. Let me give you some practical strategies. First of all, you want to anchor yourself into who God is, not what you feel. Your feelings are real, and I'm not dismissing them, but they're not always truth. For instance, you might feel abandoned, but the truth is God never leaves you. You might feel rejected, but the truth is you're totally and completely accepted in Christ. You might not feel God's presence, but the truth is He is always with you. God's character doesn't change based on what you feel. On days that you don't feel His presence, that you don't feel it, it doesn't matter. He's still there. Like on days that you feel distant from Him, it doesn't matter. He's still close. You need to create anchors like scripture, truth statements, God's character, things that you can stand on even when your feelings are lying to you. So here's what that looks like practically. You're feeling abandoned. Instead of just sitting in that emotion, you start to speak truth over it. You can say something like, you know what? Right now I feel abandoned, but I know the truth is, God, you've never left me. You never will leave me. You will never forsake me. And that is a promise that you've made. And I know you are incapable of breaking your promises. So no matter what I'm feeling right now, I'm going to hold on to the truth of your promise. By doing this, you're declaring truth over your feelings. You're not dismissing them, but you're not letting them have the final word. Second, start asking God, why am I feeling this way? Your feelings are hiding a mystery of God. And instead of trying to stuff your emotions down, start investigating them. Ask God, like, is this mine? Is this someone else's? Am I feeling my own emotion? Or did I pick this up from someone? You can ask God, are you trying to show me something through this feeling? Is there a message here? Or is this a call to intercession? Do you want me to go pray about something? You can also practice journaling. Journal your emotions and don't just interpret them. Say okay, ask God to interpret them is what I mean. So for instance, if you're going to journal your emotions, don't just write, well, I feel sad today. Write, I'm actually feeling this overwhelming sense of sadness, and God, where is this coming from? What are you trying to show me? What do you want to tell me about this? And here's the thing. Often the feeling is the message that you need to share. For instance, if you feel compassion for someone, that's God probably saying, go speak life into them. Or if you feel burden for a situation, that's often a call to intercession for that particular situation. Speaking of intercession, leads me to the third way to steward your gift, is to learn the difference between your emotions and intercession. So what do I mean by this? Well, this is actually kind of huge for feelers, because when sadness drops on you out of nowhere and you're all of a sudden feeling this overwhelming sadness, that's often a call for intercession. When you feel this overwhelming burden for a person or a situation, that's often a call to go and pray about it. So let me explain what intercession is, just in case you don't know. It's actually partnering with God's emotions to pray His will into existence. You're feeling what He's feeling, and so you're praying through it together. For instance, when you're feeling a sudden sense of sadness, instead of trying to figure out what it is you're sad about, recognize that it's probably a call to intercession and ask, okay, well, who needs prayer right now? What are you burdening me to pray for? And then pray. Pray until the burden lifts. And that's the key. See, you don't carry it forever. It's not yours to carry. It was just a feeling in the spiritual realm that prompted you to go pray. Pray until the burden lifts. Pray until you feel there's a release, until there's joy and there's peace. And the relief that comes with this is this understanding that this is not my burden to carry, but it's mine to pray about. You're not supposed to walk around drowning in sadness forever. You're supposed to recognize that it's a call to pray and then go pray through it and release it. Remember that Jesus says, my burden is light and my yoke is easy. So if you're carrying around heavy burdens all the time, you're carrying around something you're actually supposed to be praying for or praying through. And the fourth way to grow and steward this gift is to learn how to create emotional boundaries. Now, what do I mean by that? You can acknowledge your feelings without letting them control you. This is a discipline. It's learning to say, I'm feeling this, but I'm going to move forward anyway. Like, for instance, you feel anxiety. Okay, acknowledge it. Recognize, okay, I'm feeling anxious right now. But then you make a choice. I'm going to do what I know is right anyway. I'm not saying move forward on big decisions and things like that. But like if you're just in your day-to-day and all of a sudden you just got this drop of anxiousness all over you, recognize that, okay, I'm feeling what I'm feeling, but I know the right next thing to do is. And then move forward and do that next thing. You can go pray about it. You can discern, well, is this mine? Is this someone else? Is this from the enemy? Is this what's going on here? But in the meantime, don't let it paralyze you. Don't let it control you, and know that you're going to move on to the next right thing to do. And then you need to learn how to set boundaries with people who drain you emotionally. See, not everyone deserves unlimited access to your emotional energy. Some people are emotional vampires, and they will dump all their stuff all over you and leave you depleted. They literally suck the life out of you. And it is okay for you to say, I can't carry that for you right now. And it's okay to step back from certain relationships that are exhausting you. And here's a practical application for that. When you realize you've taken on someone else's emotions, you can practice return to sender. Just like with the mail, like you can pray, God, I release this back to you. This is not mine to carry, and I give it back to you, and I ask that you minister to this person directly. You can care about someone without carrying their emotions. And the fifth way to steward this gift is to celebrate positive moments. For instance, as a feeler, you tend to focus on negative emotions and you can miss the positive ones. You may be quick to feel pain, sadness, burden, grief, but what about the good ones like joy, delight, peace, excitement? Intentionally celebrate when you feel joy, when you feel God's love, when you feel His pleasure, when you feel love, when you feel gratitude. Don't just rush past those moments. Sit in them, savor them, document them. Practice gratitude as an emotional discipline. For instance, like every day, write down 3 things that you're thankful for. What that does is it trains you to notice the good, not just the hard. Make sure you are balancing the heavy with the light. For instance, yes, you're going to carry burdens, and yes, you're going to intercede, but you also get to celebrate. You also get to feel God's joy. You get to feel His pleasure. Don't miss out on those things. 6th thing, find your feeler community. You need to be around other people who understand what it is to be a feeler. You need other feelers who get it. You can't necessarily process your emotions with people who don't feel the way you feel. Like if they're not a feeler at all, like it's going to be hard to process what you're going through with someone like that. They're going to miss it. They're going to dismiss you. They're going to tell you that maybe you should just get over it. They're going to make you feel like you're feeling too much or like you are too much. It's going to be a very difficult connection there. Find safe people who don't dismiss your feelings. Find other feelers who understand what it's like to feel everything, and then build relationships where you can, and you can feel freely without apologizing for it. Now, if you're not a feeler, but you love someone who is, if you're married to a feeler, you work with a feeler, you have a feeler on your team, let me give you some coaching. First, value their feelings. They're feeling what they're feeling because it's a divine download. Don't just dismiss them as being over emotional. Their emotions are divine information. They're picking up on things that you can't feel. They're picking up on things that you may be completely missing. Second, stop telling them they're too sensitive. It's their gifting. They're not being too sensitive. They're operating in a way that they're operating in God's gift to them and how God speaks and communicates to them. And when you're telling them they're too sensitive, you're literally telling them that their prophetic gift is a flaw. So stop doing that. It's not helpful. Third, don't rush them. They actually need to feel in order to move forward. And you might be ready to make a decision immediately, but they need to process it emotionally. Give them that time. Fourth, ask them what they're feeling. And ask them, like, what are you really feeling right now? And don't accept surface answers. Dig deep with them. Get to the root of it. Fifth, help them identify what they're feeling. Ask them, like, is this your emotion, or are you picking up on something else? Is this God maybe asking you to pray about something, or is this intercession? Help them identify what it is they're feeling and where it's coming from. Sixth, connect with them and help them bring breakthrough. Like, don't just leave them alone in what they're feeling. Don't leave them alone in their emotions. Pray with them, process with them. Help them steward what it is they're feeling. Seventh, introduce them to intercession. Maybe a lot of feelers maybe don't realize that what they're experiencing is really a call to pray. And you can introduce them to intercession and help them to understand this part of their gift. Eighth, remind them that God's burden is light and that everything is not theirs to carry. They can pray through it and release it. Ninth, celebrate their gift. Tell them, thank you for feeling what I can't feel. Thank you for picking up on the things that I miss. And your gift makes our team stronger, because it does. And your gift makes our marriage richer. Or I value what you bring to the group. Or I value what you bring to the relationship. I value what you bring to the team. I value what you bring to the church. I value what you bring, period. That validation, it actually means a whole lot to a feeler who's been told their whole life that they're way too much. All right, so now let's get super practical. And I'm going to give you some tools that you can start using this week. So I want you to grab a journal. And every time this week you feel something strongly, I want you to write it down and then answer these questions. What am I feeling? Name it. Be specific. Is it sadness, anxiety, joy, or anger? Make sure you're specific with what it is you're feeling. Then ask, is this mine or someone else's? Don't just ask yourself, but ask God. Did this drop on you suddenly? Were you fine until you talked to someone? Whose emotion might this feeling belong to? Then ask, what is God showing me through this? What's the message? What's the mystery? Is there something He wants me to see? And then take an action step. Do I need to pray? Do I need to share this with someone? Do I need to release this? What's the next step? Journaling this way actually helps you steward your emotions instead of drowning in them. And now I want to share just a very quick little prayer with you that you might find helpful. It's the return to sender prayer. When you realize that you've taken on someone else's emotions, you can just say the simple prayer. I hope it helps you. God, I recognize this isn't mine to carry. I release this emotion back to you. I give the person's name, their feelings of anxiety, sadness, or anger. I give it back to you. And I ask you to minister to them directly. And I receive your peace in exchange. So now I also want to share with you some red flags that you may be operating in your flesh versus your spirit when you're feeling. You can ask yourself these questions. Am I drowning in emotions or stewarding them? Am I demanding others to validate my feelings without being able to articulate them? Am I dismissing logic and wisdom because of feelings? Am I making everyone else responsible for my emotional state? If you answered yes to any of these questions, it's okay. You're not guilty. There's no condemnation. But you're operating out of your flesh, not out of your spirit. And it's okay. It's real simple. All you need to do is just recalibrate back to who you are, your identity in Christ, get back to God and allow Him to show you the truth. And I want to encourage you that you can feel something and still move forward. Like, you can practice this, for instance, okay? I feel whatever the emotion is, but the truth is whatever God's character or promise is, that you can relate to that and you can make a choice to move forward anyway. And I'm not saying, okay, I feel like I really shouldn't do this, but then now I'm gonna go ahead and do it anyway. I'm not saying that. I'm saying don't let it paralyze you. And if you're feeling something that isn't from God, or you're feeling something that's in the room or in the atmosphere, but it's not necessarily a God-given emotion, it's not Him speaking to you, you don't want it to paralyze you. You don't want it to keep you from moving forward in what God has for you, because it's not from Him anyway. And so it's keeping you stuck. So what you want to do is you want to just, okay, I feel this. You want to acknowledge it. And then you want to say, but you know what? God's truth says this. And then you know that you can move forward to whatever the next right step is and not be paralyzed. And lastly, you can create an anchor list. What is an anchor list? Okay. Make a list of truths that you can return to when your feelings lie to you. For instance, Hebrews 13:5 says that God never leaves you. 1 John 3:1 says that you are loved. Romans 8:28, God works all things out for the good of those who love Him and are called according to His purpose. Matthew 11:30 says that His burden is light. When your feelings are screaming lies, go back to your anchor list. Reground yourself in God's truth. All right, friends, so here's your challenge this week. Get you a journal. Start journaling in it daily about what you're feeling, using the questions that I gave you from before. Start practicing intercession. Next time you feel sudden sadness or a burden that doesn't seem to have a source, don't dismiss it. Just go pray instead. And here's a reflection question for you to ask yourself this week. When have I dismissed my feelings as just being emotional, when reality is God was actually speaking to me through them? Sit with that for a little bit. Journal about it. Ask God to show you where you've been dismissing your gift, and then find one safe person who will honor your emotions without dismissing them or judging you for them. One person who can process with you and not tell you that you're too much. Next episode, we are diving into the hearer. If you actually hear words or phrases or sentences from God, if you have journals filled with just years and years of things that you've heard, if you're the person who hears, "Speak, Lord, your servant is listening," and He actually speaks to you, then this episode is for you. You don't want to miss it. If you've gotten value out of today's episode, make sure to like, share, subscribe. Hit the bell icon so you get notified every time an episode is uploaded. And I hope you have a great day, and I will be seeing you next time.